From the wildest reaches of the watershed to the deepest parts of the Chesapeake, it is not difficult to find evidence of human influences on the environment. A growing body of evidence and analyses suggests that since the Industrial Revolution, and maybe even before, people have extended their influence over the land, water, plants, and animals at a level that rivals the forces of nature that shaped the earth over millions of years. Because of this, a growing number of scientists think we have entered a new geological epoch called the Anthropocene, the recent age of man. This NOAA Environmental Training Center's workshop explores how the humans have affected the Chesapeake and the notion that people have the ability to shape the environs at local and global scales. But the question remains, how do changes in climate, land use, and human populations affect our approach to restoring, conserving, managing, and teaching about the Chesapeake Bay and the watershed that feeds it?
I'm Bart Merrick, and I actually work here for the NOAA Chesapeake Bay office and run this program, the Environmental Science Training Center. The whole point of this program is to try and connect the science that's happening out there in the Chesapeake Bay region with educate and start a conversation about what it means to be, if we are, living as humans in the Anthropocene, or citizens of the Chesapeake Bay watershed in the Anthropocene. If you can just turn around or turn to the person next to you, and if you can think in your mind's eye about, seriously, 50 years from now, where you work, or where you live, or where you might be, what might it look like in 50 years? What is one thing that you would expect to see change in that 50 years? So if you can just say, what is that one thing that you would expect to change? And talk amongst yourself, just for a minute, because it's about conversation. These are good things. These are all really good things to keep in mind. I think this is exactly the points that we want to have a conversation about.
Talking about restoration goals, we're often looking back and thinking about the past, and we're thinking about what we want to recover in the context of what was. And there's another realm of thinking about this, and maybe it's more in psychology circles, but it's what is referred to as a past-based future, that you're trying to reflect on the past in a way that will sort of predict the future, when we know that's inherently not logical. That's not actually how it works. So we really should think forward and anticipate, and maybe end the dithering, or be wildly optimistic, or at least curious about what could be.
Anyway, but let's talk about the Anthropocene. So the first question, of course, that everyone has is, when did it begin? When did we start this new geological time period characterized by human transformation of the Earth system? When does that start? So I would say that kind of the furthest back some folks would like to start the period at which humans transformed the biosphere is with the megafaunal extinctions before the last ice age. Eugenic, or the early Anthropocene hypothesis, is that by farming, by clearing the land, tilling the soil, growing rice that emits methane, we pushed the climate system and atmospheric trace gases like methane and carbon dioxide into a new pattern. We actually started them rising instead of just declining. As population densities increase, the amount of land used per person goes down. This is called land use intensification. And it's the rate of deforestation, not the amount, that causes the emission of greenhouse gases. And so if you do that, if you take this and put it together with population growth, you get this pattern of emissions, which shows that you can actually explain early emissions of greenhouse gases just by understanding how populations use land. Well, is that global change caused by humans has nothing to do with the biology of people. Nothing. If there's more and more people, do we have more and more of this? Is there just a relationship between people and the earth glowing at night? Right? Is it a biological phenomenon? No, this is a socially created phenomenon. But the main thing is this way that all of our interactions emerge into this larger scale human system. That is what's driving global change, and that is the thing that we're interested in, we're part of, but have no control over whatsoever. I would say at the global scale, humans have not gotten the capability to interact with the biosphere intentionally. Right now, it's pretty much just an emergent property.
We need interdisciplinary collaboration. And probably more important than that, we need new perspectives, new data, new eyes, new vantage points to shed light on these very important environmental problems. This whole issue about when it began, Earl hit the nail on the head. It's not really that important, right? Did it begin 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 200 years ago, 10,000 years ago? The more important issues are how we get beyond it and how we start creating a more sustainable future within that. The first thing I'll just ask before we talk about this, how many of you have heard of shifting baselines? Baselines really looks at restoration, thinks about the earth around us from a different vantage point, and that's
So look at sort of the yin and yang of restoration and conservation. You know, a lot of the Bay program and EPA is very focused on water quality and reducing that water quality and the impact of the environment onto our waters. But it's important to note that, you know, conservation and identifying pristine areas and trying to protect them from future development and conversion is also a very important piece of the puzzle.
Probably I would start with what Maryland and a couple other states are already doing, keeping an alternative indicator of economic progress called a GPI, the Genuine Progress Indicator. Biological foundation for peace, it would probably be moderation in numbers.
Social, our impact, and that we have a choice. And I think that's the whole hope part, is that teaching students that you do have an impact and you do have a choice.